$240 billion. That's the total debt of the Volkswagen Group currently has. This humongous figure positions it as one of the most indebted companies globally. But if you think that's the only trouble brewing for the German auto giant, buckle up. In the first 9 months of 2024, its profits have gone down 20% compared to last year. And now, for the first time in the company's 87-year history, VW is considering shutting down 3 factories in its home turf, Germany, which gave rise to a huge protest from its workers. Volkswagen stock has fallen 60% since 2021, and its market capitalization now sits just over $50 billion below Chinese car companies like Xiaomi and BYD. And that signals a troubling time for the world's second largest automaker. So in this video, we are going to have a look at what's gone wrong with Europe's largest car maker and why things are unlikely to get better anytime soon. To understand that, we'll have to go back in time and see where it all began. Volkswagen, or the People's Car Company, was founded by Germany government led by Adolf Hitler in 1927. The simple idea was to build practical and economical cars for everyday use. The design for the first Volkswagen, known as the Volkswagen Type 1 or Beetle, was created by Ferdinand Porsche. Initially, the car's Nazi roots and tiny size didn't win over Americans. But in 1959, a genius ad campaign turned the Beetle's compactness into its charm. Suddenly, it became America's favorite foreign car. Then came a big shift. The Germany government privatizes the company by selling 60% of its VW stock to the public, and not long after, VW hit a historic milestone. The Beetle broke a major record. It surpassed the Ford Model T's worldwide production record of 15 million vehicles since the early 1900s. From there, VW was unstoppable. By the 1990s, it was on a buying spree, snapping up brands like Seat, Bentley, Bugatti, Lamborghini, Skoda, Scania trucks, Porsche, MAN and Ducati. Its market share in Europe surged from 12% in 1980 to 25% by 2020. At one point, it even overtook Toyota to become the world's top car maker. It was riding high with an audacious, or as some people would call it, arrogant slogan,
Volkswagen, das Auto.
The car. But 2015 changed everything. In 2015, the US Environmental Protection Agency uncovered a shocking scandal. For over a decade, VW has been rigging its cars to cheat emission tests. What this means is that their vehicles were spewing 40 times the legal limit of nitrogen oxide on the road. But when tested in a controlled environment, they would emit far less pollution. Now you may have wondered, bro, how did it get away with that for so long? Well, they have done it via a defect device. It was a sneaky software designed to outsmart emission test. It would monitor details like speed, engine activity, air pressure, and even the steering wheel position to detect whether the car was in a controlled testing environment. And that would switch the car into a special clean mode, which would emit far less pollution than it actually did on the road. But as soon as the test was over, the car went back to its regular polluting ways. And this is how, ladies and gentlemen, VW's so-called clean diesel vehicle managed to become a hit, capturing nearly a quarter of their US sales until the truth came out. VW's once pristine image was tarnished, its stock nosedived, and customers didn't even want to touch the brand, especially in the US. The financial hit of the diesel scandal was colossal, which was approximately $35 billion in fines and settlements that kept draining its coffers. But VW knew it had to bounce back and fix its reputation. It had to build great cars again and take on its competition the honest way. And if the diesel scandal wasn't enough, in 2023 the European Union announced its plans to ban petrol and diesel cars from 2035. And it forced a rapid pivot towards electric vehicles that the company wasn't really prepared for. When it comes to combustion engine cars, they would still make cars that people wanted to buy or they could afford. But the transition to electric vehicles wasn't going great for them. In the first half of 2024, VW sold something like 235,000 EVs, well behind behemoths like Tesla and BYD, but also behind European equivalents like BMW, which sold just over 300,000 units. This is in part because VW's EVs are relatively expensive, but it is also because VW has tried and struggled to bring all the new EV-related processes in-house. For example, Tesla makes 68% of the components in the latest Model 3, and BYD makes 75% of the components in the Seal. But VW only makes 35% of the components in its ID3 EV. So to design software for its cars, VW created a subsidiary company, CARIAD, in 2021, and a year later another subsidiary called PowerCo to design and manufacture batteries. The aim was to invest 20 billion euros in 5 factories by 2030. However, their strategy of vertical integration isn't going as per their plan. While CARIAD has been almost an unmitigated failure with recurring delays, overspends and futile management shakeups, PowerCo was holding off on outside investors due to doubts over its ability to produce batteries competitively and at scale. Now its EV market share is being squeezed by cheap Chinese competitors like BYD and Li Auto, who all outsold VW in the first half of this year. Apart from the diesel scandal and EV transition challenge, VW faced some other major problems. In 2020, the pandemic hit global economies hard, but Germany's economy in particularly never quite recovered. And it got worse with the Russia-Ukraine war, which shot up the energy costs. So now Germany, which was heavily reliant on Russian energy, was left scrambling. This rising input cost further squeezed VW's margin. So what's left? Exports? Well, that hasn't panned out either. VW's finance chief admitted that the company expects its annual European sales to fall by 500,000 units compared with pre-pandemic levels. And the reason is simple. VW is no longer the people's car as it used to be. Their car prices have gone up significantly. Just take the example of Volkswagen Golf. Its price has doubled from £14,000 in 2014 to £29,000 in 2024. At the same time, its build quality has gone down and original parts have become super expensive. VW's American efforts aren't going much better. While SUVs have helped boost sales a bit in the past few years, VW's partnership with American brands like Scout and Rivian have not fared well. VW is still yet to produce a new Scout car, and Rivian lost more than $1.4 billion in the first quarter of 2024, losing more than $338,000 per vehicle sold. Then there is another problem.
Mercedes-Benz, BMW, and all of the different Volkswagen, millions and millions of cars. We're going to put tariffs on them.
If we talk about China, Volkswagen was one of the first Western companies to start doing business in China in the 1970s, and today it depends on the country for at least half of their annual profits. But things are changing fast. Local Chinese manufacturers have taken considerable share, while German brands including VW's have steadily declined. Both because they are cheap, but also because the trade war has inspired a sense of economic nationalism amongst Chinese consumers. Nonetheless, VW has been losing market share, going from almost 20% of the Chinese market in 2020 to less than 15% last year. So cutting costs may be the only way out for VW, right? Well, not really. VW is in a particularly difficult position because of its uniquely complicated governance structure. And let me explain it to you in the simplest way possible. The billionaire Porsche PH family and the German state of Lower Saxony together control roughly 3/4 of the voting rights despite bearing less than half of the equity. The Volkswagen brand has 10 production locations within Germany that both make cars and components, and the majority of them are in the state of Lower Saxony. Volkswagen management has said that as many as 3 of those factories could be at risk of closing or of restructuring, which is very controversial decision because you are picking a fight with the employees. So there are like 300,000 German employees at the VW brand, which obviously have political power, which in turn influences Lower Saxony, the state that has a blocking minority. The state of Lower Saxony also has 2 seats on Volkswagen's supervisory board. They, along with 10 seats that sit on the supervisory board, are from the labor side, mean they have a majority. This weird setup makes it harder for the company to make big decisions even if they are in the best interest of the company. On top of that, German workers aren't sufficiently productive. It takes VW German workers 3 times as long to produce an EV as Tesla's American workers. Nonetheless, moving production out of Germany will be furiously resisted by the Lower Saxony government and well-organized German unions. That structure makes Volkswagen very slow-moving. This has also hindered the ability of Volkswagen to make cuts to its operational costs that come from the labor side. So the big question is, can VW recover? Well, I hope so.